We do know from our previous tutorials that testing is of two types, static and dynamic. But when it comes to the static and dynamic exploration, in our recent videos, we have understood a lot about what exactly static testing is, what are the various types of it, and how exactly it can be organized in form of reviews in order to find defects early in the life cycle. But in this tutorial, we are going to get started with the other part of it or other type of testing, that is dynamic testing. To understand more about what kind of levels can exist under dynamic testing and in more detail what exactly is the way of conducting and organizing a particular level of testing is. So let's get started with the very first tutorial on unit testing. Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to another episode of Testing in Nutshell. This is Neeraj Kumar Singh and today we are talking about unit testing. Unit testing, being the very first level of dynamic testing, allows you to test each and every unit. And for that we need to understand what exactly is a unit all about. Unit can be called as even a module, a component, or maybe a structure, or even a simple program. Thus, unit testing is also referred to as unit testing, component testing, structure testing, module testing, program testing, etc. Or in case like sometimes we also call it as simply functional testing as well. Now, unit testing is a type of functional testing, or you can otherwise say that it is categorized under functional testing. Now, what exactly happens when we say unit testing? So, what is a unit? It is the smallest part of the application which is built at one time. Now generally we do understand that an application might have any kind of size or could be so extensive to build at the same time that you may not be able to apply everything or maybe understand how that application actually behaves. Thus, we followed this principle from the long time that break this big picture into smaller scenes and then create them. Similarly, when it comes to application, we break them into simple and smallest parts. That is called as a feature, functionality, or probably a module of the application. And what is built at one particular time is what you call it as a unit or probably a component of the module. And now, testing each one of them is called as unit or component testing. Now, I'm just using two terms because unit is quite popular in the real-time industries, whereas component testing is officially word used by ISTQB. So both are the same. It's just that we have different terminologies. Now, when we talk about unit testing in a little more detail, it is to test the functionality and behavior of each and every feature or each and every component what you find on the screen. Now, a very simple example right on the screen for you is that we are trying to test a particular text field. Now, a text field may have any type of behavior, and again we do have certain functionality associated with that. So if you just recall the definition I just mentioned, that unit testing is all about testing the functionality and behavior of each and every feature. Now, what is the functionality of this text box? That it should be enabled and a user must be able to enter something into this. Now, what will be that something is called as behavior. How does it behave? So when we say behavior here, it generally means that the user will be able to enter some kind of characters. Now, if I just have to put a label next to it and call it as name, then I say that this particular object will be having only characters into this. Now again, further to elaborate on the behavior, I can say how long is the character allowed? Does it have any kind of limitation on that? Like, is it only 8 or 10 or maybe beyond that, or there's infinite? Probably it is a message. So depending on the level or label of the object, you do have certain characteristics to be defined as a part of it. So that's where we see very first thing on the object is to understand what type of object it is, that is what type of component it is. It has a functionality which is to enable it and have the acceptance of input from the user. Otherwise, when you talk about the behavior, it talks about what type of input should be allowed here. Because if I just have the same object right below that and we are talking about the phone number, then it is having the same text box where the functionality remains the same, that it is enabled and user should be able to enter something, but the behavior changes. What's the behavior this time? It should accept only digits, not the characters. And it should be strictly up to 10 digits without any suffix or prefix. Now that's why you look into some of the similar objects on your application, you would find that every object may have some different functionality as well as different behaviors. So when it comes to component testing is just not about testing the functionality of it, probably also looking into the behavior side of it. Now you prepare test cases according to that in order to measure all these parameters. Now, is it enabled or not? And then whether it is accepting only the valid inputs and invalid inputs. So you can make use of all kind of your techniques, what you have learned, like equivalence partition, boundary value analysis, which will be very helpful at this point of time. And further, when you know about white box testing techniques, we can make use of a lot of such techniques in order to prepare the test cases for component levels. For example, we talk about statement coverage, decision coverage, and condition coverage, and there are a lot more advanced level techniques as well, which we are not going to talk about right now. So there are a lot of techniques which can be helpful in order to conduct the unit testing. The second part of it is how it can be conducted. Now when you talk about organizing and executing unit testing, it is all about the approach. So it can be done manual as well as automated. Where manual means you do it yourself, you do have a tutorial on that, you have understood about it, that you have a direct interaction with the product and the application, and you pass the values and test it. When it comes to automation, you make use of a particular tool which helps you to prepare the test script and run that tool, and the tool interacts with the application in order to get the outcomes or expected or comparison of actual result. So yes, we have both the applicabilities. You may use manual approach or automated approach. So manual is just you, but when it comes to automation, you have unit test frameworks. Now what is unit test framework? These are specialized frameworks which are specially meant for unit testing, where it is written in very small and simple phases, and a simple part of the code will be prepared, and each part will be called as a unit test, or that particular part will be interacting with one particular program or probably one particular feature. Now that is how you go ahead with unit testing. Where unit testing frameworks which are available is for specific to the language. For example, if you have Java, you have JUnit, XUnit, NUnit, PyTest, and there are such unit frameworks available depending on different type of languages what you use for unit testing. Another important part of unit testing is that it is generally conducted as a white box testing approach. That means it is done at the structure level or the code level, and generally performed by the developers of the organization. Why? Because it is easy for developers to find defects at that point of time. It also helps you to minimize your defects quite early in the dynamic lifecycle, and helps you to identify anomalies in your code right at the component testing level. So instead of getting such defects at the system level, which could be expensive to fix, you can actually get all those reports right in the beginning itself. So you do have a lot of advantages of unit testing, conducting being early, and having involvement of the developers to do that, because developers must not lose the sense of quality at any point of time. So having completely testing done by a testing team may let the developers lose the sense of quality. So some of the levels are being conducted by developers to understand what exactly testing is all about, how testing really happens, so that this helps them to identify that where exactly we go wrong. So identifying these defects will help them plan their further developments or in future developments to implement such ideas and avoid any kind of general mistakes what a human can make while preparing the code. So putting it all together, when you talk about unit testing, it is all about testing each and every component independently or within a particular module, the set of components, and it has a lot of advantages of being conducted in a lifecycle model or early in the lifecycle of dynamic testing. So, but it is a sequential way. As you see, we will have further levels of testing. We will talk in the next episode. So that's all from this particular episode, team. I hope you really enjoyed this video and had really good takeaways to understand more about unit testing. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes of Testing in Nutshell. We'll be bringing more interesting things about testing to you. So, should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'll be there to address your queries and answer them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.